Hey there, Cornerstone family. My name is Jonathan Orantes, Youth Director here at Cornerstone Church, and I'm very excited for what the Lord has in store for us today. If you're encouraged or blessed by what you hear here today, can I encourage you just to go ahead and share the message with a friend, a family member, whoever it may be. When we encourage people in the Lord, we're blessed by it. So I encourage you to do so. Hey, if you missed out last week on our Vision Sunday, it's totally fine because you could actually go back and rewatch it. And I would encourage you to do so because it was such a beautiful expression of just creativity and just awe of what the Lord has in store for us this year in 2021. Just to see the different ministries and our goals for what we have for our community was really uplifting. And once again, I would encourage you to watch it. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. So I'm very excited to be able to announce our first ever virtual breakthrough wall. You might ask, John, what is that? Explain a little bit more. I'll go ahead and do one better and I'll show you what that is. So right here, I've created a post for our youth Instagram account, and I just wanted to encourage them, let them know that we're praying for breakthrough in their lives, right? So I would continue as usual, create the post, do a little bit of editing, add a description, and if you use the hashtag, let me go ahead and paste that right there, Year of Breakthrough SF, what's gonna happen is we've created this wall that all of these posts will go on. So if you need prayer or you wanna encourage people by the breakthrough that's happening in your life, if you use the hashtag Breakthrough SF or Year of Breakthrough SF and you tag CornerstoneSF, what's going to happen is all of our posts will hop on this wall and we'll be able to see it and encourage each other. It's going to be great. I'm very excited. So let's do so right now. So I go ahead and I use that hashtag. I'm also going to add CornerstoneSF to that. So I tagged CornerstoneSF. I've used the hashtag breakthrough, Year of Breakthrough SF. And I'm going to go ahead and press OK. I'm going to share this post. So as this post gets shared, what's going to happen is if you click on the hashtag Year of Breakthrough SF, you'll be able to see everybody else who's also using the same hashtag. So let's go ahead and do so. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and there you go. Now we just have a wall of just encouragement and just prayers and breakthrough that's happening. So I encourage you to do it. It's going to be awesome just to be able to see throughout the year what the Lord is doing. With that being said, I'm very excited once again for worship. I love it. And hey, how about we stand up and let's worship together? Let's kick it off, band.
Hey, welcome to our Sunday service, our time of worship. We're going to start with the song Breakthrough. If you were able to join us for our Vision Sunday last week, this song is the heart of our theme, our desire, our prayer for this year, that we would contend for breakthrough in different areas of our lives, whether it's external, whether it's internal. As a community, we're inviting God to determine, to define, and to help us to break through in this year. And so whatever those areas are in our hearts, God, we bring those places before you. We ask for you to break through, for your light to shine, for your power to make itself known in our weakness. And we worship you in this time here, present and attentive to you. We thank you for it, Jesus, as we sing.
I am weary from the waves crashing over every day. God of mercy, please come rescue me. I am longing for your voice, your gentle what's broken and make it whole again.
Your power, your presence.
Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. There will be breakthrough. Shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens. Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart.
By your power,
By your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side.
let's sing that again. Shake the mountains.
Shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens. Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. By your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. I believe there will be breakthrough. There will be breakthrough.
God, we remind ourselves who is the one who controls the wind and waves, the one whom the mountains and sky and stars obey. God, that is you, our Father in heaven. And we ask for you to have your way in our lives. We honor you. We give you praise here in this time as we continue to sing of your love.
I brought you all my foolish crowns. With trembling hands I laid them down, expecting wrath to be poured out. But you placed mercy on my brow. Still my best is nothing less than filthy rags and emptiness. One drop of blood raised me from death, and you see me through your righteousness. And I'm singing, oh, how sweet, amazing grace wraps me as your love comes down.
Now daily I walk safe, secure. Even through trouble you endure. I'm not afraid, but I am sure. I'm sure, Lord, you are mine and I am yours. And we're singing, oh, how sweet, amazing grace wraps me in a warm embrace. Oh, my heart rejoice. I was lost, now found. All my praise goes up as your love comes down.
Think about it.
What a great day that will be when I stand there at my Savior's feet, singing thank you for all eternity. Yeah. All my praise goes up and your love comes down. Sing, oh, how sweet, amazing grace wraps me in a warm embrace. Oh, my heart rejoice. I was lost, now found. All my praise goes up as your love comes down. All my praise goes up as your love comes down. Your love comes down. Sing this together. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. All my praise goes up as your love comes down. One more time. So my praise goes up as your love comes down.
Amen. God, we do lift our praise to you this morning, and we thank you that your love comes down on us. And like the song says, we ask that you would help us to walk safely and secure because you are ours and we are yours. Let's continue with our online service.
Hey there, and welcome to our weekend service. My name is Sam Markham. I'm one of the associate pastors here at CornerstoneSF, and I'm excited to be able to be the bridge today between that great worship set that we just had and getting to hear from Pastor Kory shortly. But before that, I just wanted to provide a few things that are going on right now that might be of interest to you. So first of all, our spring small group season is getting ready to start shortly. Our spring season runs from February through May, and signups are happening right now. And so you can go online, you can browse our small groups on our webpage, you can search by different criteria to find a group that's exactly what you're looking for. And our groups are where we study the Bible together, where we may watch a video series together, or we may just talk about the weekend messages, but it's a place where we can pray for one another and encourage one another and explore what it looks like to live out our faith right here, right now. Then I also wanted to mention we have our weekly communion gatherings happening over at the Reardon campus every Sunday morning at 9 and 11. And so if you're feeling ready to start gathering a little bit in modest ways while still being safe, we have a beautiful outdoor space. We have a great big courtyard that we can use on nice weather days. And if it happens to be rainy or windy, we can move into the breezeway. But either way, we wear masks, we social distance, and we can have that time of worship together. We can also hear just a quick word and then take communion. And so it ends up being about a half an hour, but it's just a great way to rebuild that pattern of gathering together and be able to see one another, encourage each other in person a little bit, and then go about the rest of our day. And then finally, I'm super excited about this change that's happening for Wednesday nights. We're starting a new thing called Faith Track. And it's part of the broader initiative for 2021, this idea of trying to make discipleship normative. And discipleship is just a matter of what it means to be a disciple or a student of Jesus. And so we want to try to make following Jesus as easy as possible. And so what we're going to do on Wednesday nights, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m., we're going to have a 15-minute teaching on some component of what it looks like to follow him, something based on what the Bible says that looks like. And so from that 15-minute teaching, we'll jump over to a 30-minute Zoom conversation where we can ask questions, where we can talk about it and explore how we can apply those things to our lives. And then we'll dismiss at that time, but anyone who wants to stick around and has some questions, we'll have a Q&A as well. But the whole thing will be about 45 minutes for most of us, maybe an hour if you have some questions. But we'll do that each week as a way of applying our faith. And even if you can't join us for the Zoom part of it, if you can only come for the 15 minutes, or maybe you want to watch the 15 minutes another time, it'll be on demand after it airs at 6 p.m. And so you can pull it up the next day or a couple days later and go through it with a family member or a friend. And our goal is to find other people to journey with this year. So think about who you might want to invite into walking on this faith journey. And then if you think Wednesday night might be a great way to kind of add to how you're growing in the Lord, then join us for that, for Faith Track. And so with that, I'd love to hand it off to Pastor Terry for the next installment of our Breakthrough series. Enjoy.
All right, so good to be able to be together right now and share this moment. And Lord, even before we begin this word, we just invite your presence to be near and with us. We want to cultivate an openness towards you and to the words that you have for us. It's such a critical time. We ask for breakthrough. Yeah, in Jesus' name. Well, our text this morning, the passage I want to look at, Matthew 13, just want to jump into it. I want to just sort of sit with the parable of the sower and this amazing teaching that Jesus gave us, and then draw life out of it. So it says this in Matthew 13, later the same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. Now, the lake was what it really is. It was what we call in the scriptures the Sea of Galilee, and it's still what it's known by today, but it really is a lake. It's the Lake Gennesaret. It's a freshwater lake. So, actually it's the largest fresh water body in Israel, and it's shaped like a harp. So I had a chance to see it now more than a few times, and it always brings to life the things that I read about in the scriptures, and it's something that we can keep in mind when we read this together. And it says that a large crowd soon gathered around him. So he got into a boat, and then he sat there and he taught as the people stood on the shore. And he told many stories. Jesus did. Jesus was a storyteller. And he told many stories in the form of parables, such as this one. Now, you and I, well, I'm not sure all of us would know this, but about a third of all of Jesus's recorded teachings actually were in the form of parables. And when we think about what a parable is, yes, it's a story of sorts. There's no question about that. But literally, parable, para means beside, balo, to throw. So parable, to throw alongside, placing things side by side to be able to gain, for the purpose of comparison, an understanding. And the way I was taught was that a parable of Jesus was always to be thought of as an earthly story designed to illustrate a heavenly meaning. And I think that still works really well. Parables utilized familiar things of Jesus's day. So, okay, this is something worth noting. For those who listened to Jesus give the parables for the first time, it was actually just a one-step process, because Jesus would refer to things that most all of them were familiar with. Sometimes in his parables, he would refer to things that they were literally able to look at, right, in that moment. So they had less to decipher because they were familiar with the illustration that Jesus was using. Now we, today, as readers of the scriptures, are actually at a slight experiential disadvantage when it comes to appreciating many of the nuances of Jesus' parables. Why? Because deciphering his parables is for us a two-step process, because the first thing we need to attempt to do, which was something they didn't have to try to work as hard with, is to understand and appreciate the illustration itself. Because again, in that day, it would have made complete sense. But for us, it's not necessarily part of our everyday life and experience. And so, we're having to take an additional step to sort of set it into a context and then explain the setting. And then secondly, after that, we get to attempt to comprehend the heavenly principle that the parable is designed to illuminate or convey. So for us, it becomes that two-step process, whereas for the listeners in Jesus' day, it was more of a one-step process. I hope that makes sense. And I want to suggest also that Jesus was, in addition to everything else that he was, and he was so many things: Savior, Redeemer, King, right? Priest, Messiah. But he was also a master storyteller. And he was really good at it. That's the thing, because his stories still live with such power and potency, not just because of the Word of God, but because they work as just stories. They draw us in. And I think it's good to remember that even though their primary purpose wasn't to entertain, it nonetheless had a component of it that was, if I can use it, and I mean this with humility, but there wasn't an entertaining component to it, in the sense that stories draw us in and they illuminate our imagination. But in Jesus' case, the primary purpose of his parables was to awaken what we might call the spiritual imagination. And so what I want to do is look at what I think is the parable that is so connected to our Breakthrough series, and one of the reasons why that picture is behind me right now is I want to look at the parable of the sower. And let's just read it together. Sometimes it's also known as the parable of the soil, and you'll see why. But let's just read it through. Listen, Jesus said, a farmer went out to plant some seeds, and he scattered them across his field, and some seeds fell on a footpath, and the birds came and ate them. Other seeds fell on shallow soil with underlying rock. The seeds sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow, but the plants soon wilted under the hot sun, and since they didn't have deep roots, they died. Other seeds fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants, and then still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as had been planted. Anyone with ears to hear, Jesus says, should listen and understand what I'm saying. Then verse 16, I just jumped further down. But blessed are your eyes, Jesus says, because they see, and your ears because they hear. I tell you the truth that many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but they didn't see it. And they long to hear what you're now hearing, but they didn't hear it. And then watch what Jesus does. He gives the interpretation, the meaning, and it's a clear one. I mean, we're thankful for it because now we know exactly what he was trying to illustrate. He says, now listen to the explanation of the parable about the farmer planting seeds, the parable that I just shared with you, the parable that we've come to know as the parable of the sower. The seed that fell on the footpath, that, Jesus says, represents those who hear the message about the kingdom. He was the king sharing a message about what God was doing, the loving realm of God at work among us. And he says, hear the message about the kingdom and don't understand it. And then what happens is the evil one comes and snatches away the seed that was planted in their hearts. That's one type of seed. The seed on the rocky soil, that represents those who hear the message and immediately receive it with joy. But since they don't have deep roots, they don't last long. They fall away as soon as they have problems or are persecuted for believing God's word. The seed that fell among the thorns, that represents those who hear God's word, but all too quickly the message is crowded out by the worries of this life and the lure of wealth, so no fruit is produced. But the seed that fell on good soil, that represents those who truly hear and understand God's word and produce a harvest of 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as has been planted. Now, as Jesus scanned the crowd, perhaps in a distance he saw a sower, maybe on the ledge or a little beyond where the hills had leveled out. Perhaps in the crowd standing and gathered before him, he saw a representation of each of the conditions that he described, so that it, in my mind's eye, as Jesus is teaching by the Sea of Galilee, perhaps a sower in the far distance, perhaps as Jesus sees the crowds of people, the gathered ones who had come to listen, he recognizes each of the conditions in the faces of those who are listening. One thing is certain, though, Jesus makes it pretty clear. He was the sower, and his words were the seed. And the parable really is more about the soil, the way people receive or reject his words of life. In fact, doesn't Jesus describe 4 distinct groups? And maybe we could just push a little further into them. One, he says, is like the hardened soil, hard on the outside, resistant. His message can't penetrate. The seed can't get through because the will is closed. I think we've all known people like that, and maybe at one time we were like that. So, it's possible that a person's condition can change. And that's the hope of the gospel. That's one of the reasons we pray for people. Some of you, how thankful you should be, that even though there was a time maybe in our life where we were hardened to the message of Jesus, people prayed for us, people consistently loved us, people consistently tried to represent him. And even in the midst of all the confusion and the chaos of our culture, his love broke through. And our hearts changed. But when I think about the hardened soil, you can't help but think about resistance. Think about ground that when it's been walked on so much, I'm a backpacker, and a lot of times paths are just by sheer amount of use. They're hard. That dirt is as hard as rock, so heavily trod, and nothing grows on it. The seed can't get through it. And so the birds, and in fact, Jesus says what happens is the birds of the air just come in and snatch the seed away because it can't get into the soil. The breakthrough, this is this way. The breakthrough can't come because it never gets a start. The breakthrough can't come because it never gets a start. Now, the other group that Jesus said are in a way, the opposite, in the sense that they are, if you can think of it this way, they are soft on the outside but hard on the inside, whereas the first one was hard on the outside and nothing could get in. But this group is maybe soft on the outside but hard on the inside. It's like good soil on a rocky ledge or on a platform. The seed just can't go deep, and its initial growth can't be sustained, right? Especially when the hot sun hits and starts beating down on it. And Jesus called those the difficulties and the disappointments of life that just wear it down, and it wilts under the heat because it has no depth. The breakthrough can't come because of a lack of depth. Put it this way, the initial receptivity cannot be sustained. That's the sad part of what Jesus was saying. There's an openness, there's a willingness, there's an initial excitement, a joyfulness even. But what happens is that receptivity is unsustainable. And boy, don't we have difficulties and disappointments in life? I mean, we've had a ton of them this past year, year that we just have left behind us, and this new one that we're in, and that's something that can wear down the goodness of God at work in our lives if we don't give attention to it. Now, the third group that Jesus described is the soil that's filled, he said, with weeds and thorns. That is, it's good soil, but it got corrupted by the bad. And, the seed maybe started in there and there's a lot of potential, but the growth is choked away. Do you see it? By what Jesus describes as the cares and the concerns of life. Wow, how relevant is what the Lord is teaching, to what he taught us, to what we're all living through right now. And then, of course, there's the good soil. The good soil, the receptive ground that brings forth differing amounts of breakthrough. That's the only way to describe it. Some 30, some 60, some 100-fold. And Lord willing, I'm going to share even more so, just dig right in there about how growth works in our life and 30, 60, and 100-fold, and how God wants to work breakthrough into us at, increasing dimensions. But, I thought about that first soil and how hard it was, It was just hard. And what is it that God desires in us but a soft heart, you guys? I mean, that's, I hope it's okay to say that. You guys, I mean all of us, right? What the Lord needs us to give him is a soft heart. God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And when a heart is open and willing and not resisting, when there's an openness to the Lord, God can do some amazing things. He can grow some amazing things. Breakthrough is inevitable. It really is. And by the way, I think I've found sometimes that's often the quiet gift of pain and tragedy and hardship, is that, and loss, yeah. Maybe a lot of us have experienced some of that. We've been experiencing it, and maybe some of us are still experiencing it. I know we're still trying to work through things, and we hope for recovery, but we've experienced a lot of loss over these past months. And but I was thinking about that, how the difficulties, the pain, the loss of life, even the real setbacks in life, if we allow them to, they become the plowshare that opens up the ground. That's what I've found. Like the plowshare that breaks through the hardness of our hearts and creates a humility or an openness. It's what sometimes is called the gift of pain. It can. Now, I know pain in life can make us get hard, even harder, but it also can be the tool that God uses to break us into a point of openness, and that becomes the gift of life for us, because we are stripped away of a lot of the things that can hide our real selves, and in so doing, we become open to the Lord, and then we become open to finding our true selves as God sees us, as we were meant to be, as I think Calvin Miller called it, our real selves in the making. And that's what God wants. And, I think about it, the plowshare is the blade of the plow. It's the blade of the plow. It's what opens up the ground. And I've known this gift. Yeah, it was C.S. Lewis who called it who wrote about it in his book, The Problem of Pain. He said, and we'll just put this up, but pain insists upon being attended to. And I know a lot of us are familiar with this amazing quote. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but he shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. And then reflecting on the second, and just again, the blessing that sometimes happens when we're broken. And then, of course, reflecting on that second kind of soil that Jesus referenced, the soil that lacked depth, in contrast to the one that was hard and not open. And I wondered how important it is to seek depth as a follower of Jesus, to not settle for a surface level Christian life, as it will most likely be unsustainable. I think that's worth me reminding all of you of, because I care about you spiritually. And I want everybody to grow and have not just a sustainable faith, but an overcoming faith. I want that for myself. I want that for the people I love, and I want that for all of you. I really do. And, for that to happen, it's important for us to remember that the goal of the Christian life is not to be lived on the, shoal, in the shallows, but in the deep, like the Lord calls us into the deep. It's not meant to be something lived out with just a dabbling. We need to, if this is going to work right, we're going to need to have a well-developed root system that allows us to draw nutrients when the water is scarce and the heat of life intense. That's huge. That's why we are to really apply ourselves to following the ways of Jesus, and to take seriously the things that he's commanded us to do, but also reminded us to do, right? To spend time with his word, to engage in godly conversation, to build community, to learn how to pray. In my mind, to meditate and to write things down, and to reflect and think long thoughts, and to have a depth, to read good quality devotional writing, and also train with those who've learned the ways of Jesus, and learn how to glean what they've gained over years of practice. I mean, in church, one of the best things we can ever do is engage generationally with those. And I'm thinking generationally at a number of levels. One, just with people who are older than us or who are at a different life stage than us. And for those who are older, with people who are younger. I mean, that is not always a perfect analogy or representation of how long someone's been following Jesus, but it frequently is. Right? So it is possible that someone who is older has just begun to follow Jesus, and someone who is younger has been doing it for a while. And certainly that creates a different kind of relationship. And one of the things that Paul reminded Timothy of, and you can read about it in the book of Timothy, in the two, actually both 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy, but he reminds them, be careful about, underestimating your ability to impact people's lives just because you're young. And there's a consistent pattern of that. So, I'm not trying to say that older among us can never be blessed by younger among us. But if we can think of it as in a couple of different ways, there's also the idea that we've been following the Lord for a while. And there's others of us may be following for just a little bit. And although that often is connected to age, it isn't always. And so there's a value in learning the ways of Jesus by engaging people who are at a different place in their journey with the Lord and learning from them. And that is a huge benefit of having a multi-generational church, in my mind. I think, early on, I was a pastor of a church that was predominantly young, because I was young in those days. And, it was hard to get people who were older to listen to the 25-year-old or 30-year-old pastor, right? I understood that. I was just learning life in some ways. But one of the things I've come to realize is, just from a generational standpoint, there's a huge value when you're older of being around younger people, because you stay alive, you stay sharp, you stay engaged, you stay open to change. Remember, change is inevitable. Growth is growth is optional. Change is inevitable. And one of the best ways to keep growing and to be open is to be open to change, and is when you're older is to mix with the younger. And when you're younger, one of the best ways to not make unnecessary mistakes and to learn and to grow in wisdom is to listen and to interact with people who have gone ahead of us, who've lived some life, and who have something to offer us experientially. I mean, that's just wisdom. So, I hope we understand that our church, I will say this, I don't get a chance to brag on our church, and I want to always be careful about that, too much. I don't want to do overboard, but Cornerstone is an amazing community because it has the generations coming together. It's not a mono-generational church. It's a beautiful mix of different expressions, and it brings a lot of wealth and beauty into our experience as a community. And I think you add on to that the layers of multi-ethnicity that we have, been given as a blessing. It's just a remarkable place to grow as a follower of Jesus, and I'm proud, hopefully in the best way of saying it, to be able to have the opportunity to lead this season in my life. But speaking about a developed root system, when we have it, it allows us to draw nutrients. And I mentioned that, especially when the water is scarce and the heat of life is intense, and those were some of the dynamics that Jesus was referring to. And I mentioned Timothy earlier and the Apostle Paul, and in 2 Timothy 2:15, Paul actually instructed young Timothy. He says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. What he's saying is, good habits produce a good harvest. When we talk about devotions, it has to do with putting in the time to stay close to God. So as I alluded to earlier, deepening occurs out of intention. And intention, when it's acted upon out of the choice of our will, brings a kind of harvest. Now that can be good and bad. Well, when it's thrown in the direction of God, it has an amazing ability to produce harvest. So we're talking about things like prayer and Bible reading and studying the scriptures, reflecting, journaling, godly communication, though not glamorous. Those are the things that are foundational to a healthy, growing Christian life. That's what brings the depth. They are the spade work, if you can put it that way, that secures spiritual success. The critical components of the deeper life in Christ. A life that is capable of sustaining a faith that is vibrant, because inevitably our faith will be tested, because life is going to test us. And we've all been tested in these past months, and we're still being tested. And so our faith, it actually has an opportunity to grow in times like these. But now I want to just shift back over one more time. We talked about the first two soils that Jesus alluded to. Now the third one. And the third one is actually, it's good soil. It's just overwhelmed and suffocated by the thorns, by the cares and the anxieties of life. Yeah. The divided life that undermines good intentions. I can't overemphasize the value of fixing our eyes and aligning our priorities and attitudes with the truth of the gospel, fixing our eyes, staying focused on Jesus, aligning our priorities, putting first things first, and then aligning our attitudes with what we know to be true. I mean, that's key to breakthrough, right? The things that I just said are keys to breakthrough. Fix our eyes, stay focused on Jesus, align our priorities, put what Jesus said first things first, and then align our attitudes with what we know to be true. And that means I begin to act into what, out of my choice and out of my will, out of what he has told me is the most valuable and meaningful. And I align my attitude in that direction. It produces an amazing harvest. And that's why I think, I just want to sit one more time with, on that last part, thinking about Philippians 4. It's a passage that I don't think we can highlight too much in times like these, especially when we're talking about breakthrough, right? In Philippians 4, it says this: don't worry about anything. In fact, I think this would be a great spot to tie into right now, and so we bring this teaching to a bit of a close. I do have something I want to share on the backside, but I want to read this through. Don't worry, to my attitudes and fixing on the right things. Don't worry about anything. This is from the NLT. Instead, pray about everything. I love that. Don't worry about anything, but instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Those are both important. I love how both of these things have two sides. And then you will experience God's peace. Yes, you will. That is what will happen. which exceeds anything we can understand. You know what his peace will do? It will guard your hearts, the apostle says, and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Here it is. It's what I mentioned earlier. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable. We got a lot of voices flying around right now. Everybody's saying something. But I don't know if it actually helps us to be listening to all these things. I really don't. Fix your thoughts on what is true and what is honorable and what is right, but also what is pure and lovely and admirable. Not on the negativity. There's so much negativity right now. It just wants to overwhelm us. I'm not talking about being naive, but I am saying let's not be negative. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. That's where my mind needs to be going the majority of the time, okay? Keep putting into practice, the apostle says, all the things that you've learned and received from me, everything you've heard from me and you've watched me doing. Again, look, see that idea of pattern and models and the value of interactions and generational crossing over and learning from one another, getting encouraged, inspired, and blessed by one another. And remember, he then says, then the God of peace will be with you. God's reality will dwell with you in an unshakable way. When we apply these principles, we will be a people who overcome. We will be a people who have breakthrough as a way of life. That will be the rule, not the exception. And it's what I want for all of us. So I guess I would say, come on, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's be open to all the things that God wants to sow, the good things he wants to sow in us, the breakthrough he wants to bring. So here's the deal. I'm going to come back around. I have one more little piece to this. As you know, this is the time I usually remind everybody about giving, and you can give in a couple of different ways. You can send it in, like many of you do, the more traditional way to our offices. You can do it directly online through our amazing website, if I may say. And you can give through the app, which is what I do, and my wife and I. And you know what, but I always say when I get a chance, before you ever give, give the Lord your heart. And I actually think those two things are connected, because what we sow, we reap. Remember, you can never outgive God. Honor him with the first fruits. You'll never be disappointed. He can do more with a 90 than we can do with 100. That's a fact. Anyway, here we go. We got a song to share, and then I'll come back around. But Lord, I just ask that you bless what we are now about to enter into and what we have been able to enjoy together, and speak to our heart. We're not done yet, so we welcome your presence for this final piece, these final little pieces. In Jesus' name, amen.
It takes a soldier who knows his orders to walk the walk I'm supposed to walk, and love like I'm eyes upon heaven. I'm fixing my eyes on you. Oh, 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 on you. Oh, oh, I'm fixing my eyes on you. On you. Love like a knocks can't give when it's not fair. Live life for another. Take time for a brother. Fight for the weak ones. Speak out for freedom. Find faith in the battle. Stand tall and above it all. Fix my eyes on you. Oh, 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 on you. I fix my eyes on you, on you. I fix my eyes on you, on you.
You know, the Lord is so good, and his kindness towards us is boundless. I know the Lord desires to work his breakthrough in our lives. I came back to the idea of what we plant is into the ground. If it's given the proper nourishment, it's going to produce life. It's the law of the kingdom of Jesus, is that when we plant good seed in good soil, it's going to have a breakthrough. It's just a question of not if, but only how much, right? What's the impact going to be in our lives, through our lives, around our lives? It doesn't mean that we don't struggle. A lot of times, birthing of life is struggle, but it's okay. And again, I go back to that opening. We talked about how the Lord often uses the pain of life, the loss of life, to open us up to the Lord in fresh new ways. You know, blessed are those who come to him with openness of heart. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for what is right, for they will be filled. God, give us a hunger. We just want to say that we honor you, we love you, and we recognize that you are so good and you are so God, and we want to sow good, and we want to sow God. We want to be like the sower, scattering the good seed of Jesus wherever we go. Yeah, life flows. So don't forget, you are greatly loved. And my prayer is that the Lord would keep you and me, spirit, soul, and body, in Jesus' name.
Hey, it's Chloe and Micah. 2 things before we go. 1, we would love for you to participate in our virtual breakthrough wall. It's pretty easy. All you have to do when you post is you just tag us at CornerstoneSF, and then you hashtag YourBreakthroughSF. We hope this will be a great way to see about all the things the Lord is doing within our community. Also, if you have not signed up for a small group yet, our small groups are open now, so please check it out. All right, on that note, Micah, can you wave us out? Bye!
Face to face with younger me. All of the mistakes, all of the heartbreak. Here's what I do differently. Ooh, I'd love like a knocks can't give when it's not fair. Live life for another. Take time for a brother. Fight for the weak ones. Speak out soldier who knows his orders to walk the walk I'm supposed to walk. And love like I'm not scared. Give when it's not fair. Live life for another. Take time for a brother. Fight for the weak ones. Speak out for freedom. Find faith in the battle. Stand tall and above it all. Fix my eyes on you. Oh, 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 on you. The things of earth are dimming in the light of your glory and grace. I set my sights upon heaven. I'm fixing my eyes on you. Oh, 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 on you. Oh, oh, I'm fixing my eyes on you. On you. Love like I'm not scared. Give when it's not fair. Live life for another. Take time for a brother. Fight for the weak ones. Speak out for freedom. Find faith in the battle. Stand tall and above it all. Fix my eyes